Welcome to Guns, Guns, Gear, and Guns with Gary Gunderson. I am Gary Gunderson. California signed multiple gun bills into law at once and held a self-congratulatory press conference where they continue to perpetuate falsehoods and just plain idiocy.
I mean, Bruin is devastating. It's really just a perversion. It was serious stuff. Don't get me started about how corrupt the Supreme Court of the United States is as it relates to what's going on.
I really hate that man.
And this is not hyperbolic rhetoric coming from a Democratic governor on the West Coast of the United States.
Liar! Liar!
This is a business. Yeah, I understand it sells self-defense, but also is, selling weapons of war.
False. 1. What firearms that you consider weapons of war are still even legal to purchase in California? 2. The most maligned firearms, such as the AR-15, are not weapons of war, and even if you say it is derived from designs used in war, there is no law and should be no law specifically prohibiting weapons of war from being purchased by citizens.
You cannot be pro-law and order if you're anti-gun safety.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
You cannot be tough on crime if you're not tough on guns.
Except the vast majority of people use guns for lawful purposes, and there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of self-defense uses each year. So being tough on law-abiding gun owners will actually be boosting crime.
In states like Texas, Tennessee, and Alabama, states where you can carry a gun in public essentially unfettered.
What about the other 22 constitutional carry states? Half the nation allows constitutional carry, and yet these states aren't all awash in blood like the lobby from The Shining, like you claim. And what about places like Oakland, as a reporter asked?
There are parts of California, like Oakland, that has some of the highest gun rates in the country, or gun deaths.
On the point about Oakland, I just want to note, we have, one of the reasons we ran this bill is because we saw the evidence from the violence intervention programs, which treat gun violence not just as a public safety issue, but also as a public health issue.
Saying your new plans will help does not address why, if your current gun restrictions that supposedly work so well are not working in Oakland, where gun violence is still a problem. Their new carry law, which basically makes everything but public sidewalks a sensitive place where you can't carry a firearm, is absurd. A reporter asked,
if people qualify for a permit to carry a concealed weapon, where will people be allowed to carry them?
Obviously you're walking down your street, you're in a public place that you might feel the need to protect yourself. You're going to be able to have your gun. But if you're at the ball field, that's different.
So basically on public sidewalks is pretty much about it?
Public sidewalks, and if a restaurant signs a waiver and allows you in those establishments, when you go to the mall, do you need a weapon to go shopping or do you need a credit card? You need a credit card. When you go to the supermarket, bring your bags. Don't bring your gun.
And yet you are the one saying it is not safe to go to any of these places, that we have a right to be free from fear in these places, and then you act like it is absurd when someone wants to be able to protect themselves with a firearm at these locations.
The fact of the matter is we're defining what it means to be law-abiding. If you can't get 3 character witnesses to say you're an upstanding citizen, you shouldn't have a gun.
Wait. Now I have to have friends to get a firearm? Where is that in the Constitution? I'm sorry, but my right to be a cantankerous shut-in is fundamental to my freedoms, and this is the most stringent restriction I have ever seen. For all the talk about their law restricting places they can carry, they sure do cite Bruin a lot.
This bill follows the blueprint of the Bruin decision. It is Bruin compliant.
It's monitoring every single court decision around the state to make sure that what we put into law is constitutional. And as the Attorney General said, Bruin gave us a roadmap.
That it was drafted with Bruin in mind.
The lady does protest too much, methinks.
Hard-fought rights, even in a blue state, doesn't mean those rights will be enshrined. They're being rolled back in real time.
It is funny how your rights are the laws taking away rights from others. Just funny. They're also imposing an additional 11% tax on firearms and ammunition manufacturers, and they cite the NRA as inspiration.
This is a straightforward bill. It imposes a modest 11% excise tax on the gun industry, and it mirrors a comparable federal tax that has been in law for over 100 years that has always been supported by the NRA and praised by the NRA as a national model.
Number one, I don't care what the NRA says, especially when they are wrong, which is often. Number two, even if the NRA said this is good on a federal level to fund certain conservation efforts, I don't think they mean then it is automatically still good when you double that via additional taxes at the state level. It's not a national model if you then double down at the state level. And only an idiot will say doubling taxes on something to 22% is a modest tax.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Let me say that again. This is a tax on the gun industry, on gun manufacturers and gun dealers.
Except that cost will be passed on to the consumers. So it is a tax on the law-abiding gun owner. Trying to say it is anything different is pure idiocy.
This is not a general income tax, not a corporate tax. This is not, this is, from my perspective, more of a sin tax.
Right, so now it's a sin to want to own a firearm to defend yourself, hunt, or just have fun with it. Now, if you called it a cool guy tax, maybe we could talk.
And I'll say a little bit about this also as a parent of a second grader and a kindergartner in LAUSD, who very, very recently completed their shelter-in-place drills, their lockdown drills.
I have covered this before, but it is good to train people on how to react to an active threat, which will always exist regardless of any gun laws. This does not take away their innocence.
Guns are the leading cause of death of children in the United States of America.
That we can just casually say it. And we do casually say that the number one killer of our kids is guns, and it's sort of just accepted, and not everybody sort of stopping saying, well, hold on, can you repeat that?
You lose all credibility when you parrot obviously wrong information. This is not true, and hey, look at that, I've got a bingo on my gun-grabbing talking points bingo card. That's sadly not surprising. Look, you can say there are too many kids being killed by firearms, and I won't object to that. But when you try to bolster your argument with manipulated and false statistics, I can't believe a thing you say. They also have reintroduced microstamping requirements.
Beginning in 2028, that every semi-automatic pistol that is sold or transferred in California be microstamped. So have microstamping technology, which imprints a unique code or a fingerprint on all shell cases that are fired from a gun.
So this would be a ban on any pistol currently being manufactured or made at any point in history up until not just now, but the future. Because this law was recently struck down by the courts because the technology doesn't exist.
It ought to be here, but it isn't.
But somehow they think it will in 5 years.
We've had a microstamping requirement in California for a long time. It was obviously tossed in court earlier this year as being unworkable, and the state chose not to defend that. And is the hope that eventually the technology will catch up?
I believe the technology is there, and we just need to do it. So, and I think that's largely undisputed.
The court sort of disputes the notion that the technology is there, and that's why they tossed that requirement, because
look, I mean, with respect to the court, I think they're wrong on this. The technology is there. I completely dispute that.
And if the market doesn't provide it, then the state will.
What, you're going to start developing firearms technology? Going to work hand in lizard hand with who? Caltech? Taurus, good luck. Also, I have never understood this requirement because after you acquire the firearm, you could simply alter or remove the microstamping, and the only way to really tell, since it's microscopic, would be to inspect and test fire the firearm whenever it is examined.
Because we all assume that gun crimes are usually solved, but in fact, they're not.
Who assumes that? The little old lady watching CSI and the various spin-offs on CBS on Mondays and Thursdays? That's just, what are you talking about? If you think crimes are going unsolved is a revelation, how can you possibly think you are qualified to write laws that have anything to do with firearms or crime in general? What a dunce. The governor lamented recent court rulings that are restoring rights to Californians and other Americans.
Judge Benitez, just a week or so ago, federal judge in San Diego, threw out California's leading bill, and one of our leading bills as it relates to large capacity magazine clips.
Also, clips, really?
Judge Nelson threw out our nation-leading efforts as an 18 to 21-year-old to buy a long gun. Got to be, I think, seems obvious to anyone that if you can't buy a beer, you shouldn't be able to buy a weapon of war.
Yeah, I mean, you can just vote and serve in the military where you are issued actual weapons of war, but why would someone who's 18, a legal adult, be able to exercise such rights?
But they're also trying to roll back nationalized rights or states' rights that have been long afforded in states like California as it relates to gun safety. They're coming after these laws and they're winning in federal courts.
So at least there is some good news. What do you think of the new California laws? Isn't it amazing that they can hold this press conference and think they are making good points, even though they only reveal they are complete and utter morons? If you made it this far into the video, please consider supporting me on Patreon, because listening to these politicians makes me quite depressed. You can also help the channel grow by subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with others. There's a link to my Discord channel in the description as well if you want to join in there. Thanks for watching.